Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with Alex Turbin. This week we're going to be doing Grips, uh, created by Chris Silver. But before that, I wanted to show you some comics. These help promote the channel, and you can get these at alexanderturbin.com. It has Forlorn, Random Access, Cyrene the Cleric. The Random Access you can actually get on Patreon if you look up at Alexander Turbin um, backslash Patreon. And I send out a 12-page full color, full size comic book every month to my Patreons. And yep, and so again, you can go to alexanderturbin.com, or you can also find me on Instagram at alexturbin04401. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing and hitting the like button and the notification bell and all that fun stuff. Um, and let me know in the comments what you think about these comics. Um, so yeah, we're doing Grips The Adventures of Grips number 3. Um, I remember that when I first got this comic, I was very on the fence as to whether or not to get it. I had seen Faust and stuff, and there were a lot of similar comics to this, um, but and the yellow kind of turned me off. Really, the cover is the biggest thing that turned me off. Um, I remember thinking very specifically that it did not look very professional. Um, I'll get into all of this stuff. But it was created by Chris Silver, and he's the writer and also the creator of Greater Mercury Comics. The artist is Daryl Cobbs, and he's actually pretty good. Um, but before I get into the art and the writing, I'd kind of like to just touch on the cover. Um, for me, the cover is a little wonky because you've got all of this pink, and which adds no depth whatsoever to the comic, to the cover. You could have had a darker red or darker pink here, and given it some depth, or some reds, and then turned some blues, or even grays into these characters in the background. And also the logo. I don't know why they use this electric typewriter or digital typewriter um, lettering for the created by and the logo. You didn't even really need all of that on here. It would have been much better served for these to be smaller and to increase the image size. I really don't mind the framing of the comic. I do that with a lot of my own comics, like this Random Access. And instead of a full bleed, the Forlorn has a similar yellow, but I get a little bit more image space. Um, but I really don't mind the framing of the comic because you get a full image. If you're doing a bleed on here and it's not the correct size, then you could have lost like uh, almost an inch of this work on the right or left or both or the top, and so you'd be losing some of that image area. And no artist wants to do that. Nobody wants to do it to their art, and nobody wants to do it to somebody else's art. So I kind of really don't mind the framing, and it actually looks like a picture frame. But probably my biggest gripe with these, no pun intended, with Grips is the logo itself. It's really hard to understand what it is. That R almost looks like a B. It's very hard to read. It's too small, but I think the reason that it's too small is because they stick it almost in the middle of the illustration instead of at the top. Um, I think this comic would have been much better served for all of this stuff to be smaller, the image space to be bigger, and the grips to be up top. I know maybe they were trying to be experimental and a little different, and the first thing you see is the logo, but it really doesn't work for me. Um, I really think the illustration itself um, is okay, but it's really kind of not cover worthy for how good the artist is. um, so the story is, well, let's get into Greater Mercury Comics. because this actually used to be Silverwolf, which was the where Tim Vigil first created his comics. He did the Grips, the first series. This is Grips Adventures, is the second series, and but the Grips first series, Tim Vigil's original first art appearances, and he's the one that went on to do the Faust series. And Grips is really kind of a poor man's Faust, I guess, um, because it's not nearly as aggressively violent or action packed, I would say. Um, all of the Greater Mercury comics, I believe, are written by Chris Silver. And, I'm not going to I'm never going to say that an artist or a writer is bad on this channel. I Making comics is very, very difficult, and even if you're doing what you don't consider a great job, it's still very difficult, and they're putting their all of their effort into this, and maybe they go down the wrong path or a path that you perceive as the wrong one, but it's not really for us to judge somebody else's art. You can judge how you feel about the art. um, but yeah, so I'm never going to say an artist is bad or a writer is bad, because it's difficult, and again, it's your perception. It's your perception of what it is. Other people may love this art, other people may love this writing. um, so it is what it is. It's only the eye of the beholder, I suppose. um, but anyway, Grips Adventures. A big gripe I have is that they have this discussion. He has this big uh, uh, discussion on the inner front page, um, where he talks about the company, which is fine, but he really is complaining and bitching about how it wasn't run correctly, and now he had to take over, and now that he's taken over the editorial and the distribution and all that stuff, that the company is finally doing well. Um, you really kind of don't want to see that on a comic. You want to see positivity, and it's okay to say what's going on with the company, but to put such a personal slant on how the company is doing and is kind of a bummer for the reader. And so after that bummer start, uh, with no explanation as to what happened in issues 1 or 2, because this is number 3. Where does it say that? Up here in teeny tiny little lettering. See, Greater Mercury, and this is huge, but the price and the numeral and the month is tiny. Um, so you've got these characters. Uh, they're fighting to save a princess. Uh, they're snarky with each other. Full page spread of a fight scene. Um, and it's more fight scenes trying to save the princess. Apparently, they fail, and the princess is taken away. There's also a lot of ads in this comic, which is fine, but again, whoever is the designer was the designer for this book really missed the mark, because you could have had overlapping. You could have had 3 and 2. This negative space is just kind of doesn't really lend itself to stopping and looking at it. Um, so anyway, they fail at saving the princess. Apparently, they're in another world, another universe, because they keep calling it the realm, and they say her princess. So I can only assume that it was it's some sort of um, mythological realm, maybe. Um, so they go through the realm, as they say, um, and you go and see the princess who was kidnapped by these people, whoever they were, um, and they're traveling through the realm to apparently the same destination. Here's a letters page in the middle, which is fine. Again, the design. Why all this negative space? I say negative space. You can say negative space in a positive, and you can say it in a negative. When you're looking at negative space in Sin City, that is a huge positive, because it's really contrasting the shadows, and you almost get art from the negative space and art from the positive space. But here, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work, in my opinion, anyway. So they make it to the castle where the guys are taking the princess, and they have to sneak into the castle. And it's four of them, I think, 4 or 5 of them, and they make it to the throne room where they believe the princess is being held. And here's they stop this comic in the middle for what I assume is some sort of uh, letters page, story on its own. I don't know. Here looks like some Todd McFarlane art, or it's. I think maybe it's an introduction to a character. But anyway, after that interruption, um, you find our characters. They go to the throne room. They fight the bad guys that took the princess. More fight scenes. More fight scenes. The princess is finally they're all killed. The princess is restored, and she demands that the captors of who took her are killed. I guess they weren't all killed. They were just mutilated or whatever. And but first she wants them castrated. So then apparently everything's good, and they just decide to leave in the realm and go off into their own different worlds. Um, my biggest gripe about this comic book, other than the design choices, is the writing. Is like I said, I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's very factual. He says it's event, whether they're good events or bad events. And then during the events, which are fight scenes, it's then it's snarkiness between the characters. I have no idea about their backstory because I wasn't told it from the description from the inner front page. So I really don't know these characters at all, and yet they're snarky with each other. They have grievances with each other. The writing is very simplistic in the fact that it describes what's going on. So in points, the writer is trying to do some descriptive writing, some prose, but he never really gets there. He kind of starts and then stops. Um, so the writing is really kind of a detriment to the comic, because what you want to do is you want to draw in the reader, and then you want to keep their interest. So, and you want to make things so that they're believable. So you never want to lose that escapism out of the comic book. A lot of times it's the artist that draws something that you'll be like, that's not believable. So then you'll kind of break the reality of the comic and come into your own reality, and that's really what you don't want to do. So I really wouldn't favor the writer very much. The artist, on the other hand, I think is really good, and he's really hampered by the writer, because you've got all of these different fight scenes that he's got to do, which are fine. He's cool. It's cool. I like his poses. He's got nice black areas. Um, I really think that he could have been a really good Image artist or Marvel artist or DC artist. I looked up his stuff, and I didn't really see anything other than stuff that he did for Greater Mercury Comics, which is kind of a shame. Um, but his narrative art is clean and crisp. He does his best work when it's a short interval of time. Doing narrative art, there's a few challenges. The biggest is the telling of time. It's easiest when it's a short period of time, like a few seconds, and gets harder and harder the longer the time period goes. So if you're having something that is taking an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or even a day or a week, it's harder and harder to describe that with your narrative art. If it's only a few seconds, then it's kind of easy. Like this one panel actually shows a great deal of the narrative art of the time that it's taking him to slash him with his blade, which so that's really cool. I would have actually broken this down into maybe 4 panels or even 5 panels, um, because you don't need this. You just need this big, and then maybe the stuff down here, because you want to have a cool picture and then have some descriptive panels. In my opinion, anyway. Um, Sometimes that's not the right way to go, but I would say a lot of times it is, because in my estimation, you want either the big event and then describing kind of things what's happening in the story, or things that are happening in the story that end in a big event. It's kind of like each page for me is a full plot narrative. You need to get through each plot narrative to get to the whole plot narrative of the whole book. Um, so he's got some great narrative art. He's got some great panels. His figures are really nice. I really like his muscular work. He seems to know his anatomy, but who the hell knows? I mean, people talk about anatomy like it's this hidden a thing, but I mean, it is what it is. You can either go an anatomy book like a doctor would have and draw everything exactly, but everybody's different. Everybody's body's different. You know, little people, big people, fat people, skinny people, everyone's different. So anatomy isn't just one set of rules, isn't just one body type, it's everything. So anybody that complains about an artist's anatomy should just, kind of shut their face, because everybody's different. Everybody's anatomy is different. Um, as far as shapes, everybody has the same muscles. It's just that they're different shapes. Uh, so again, here's another great passage of time with the narrative art where they're at the top of a mountain and they're talking and they're going down the mountain. So as they're going down the mountain, each one is talking. So that's actually pretty good for the writer and the artist to work together in that fashion. Um, I kind of would have had this whole panel, this one thing is this, because this really shows a lot of intent on what they're doing, and it kind of is the most important scene in the whole panel, in the whole page. But this is nice because after they're at the end of the climb, they go running off. Um, I kind of wish that there were less panels, because this artist, I really kind of like this artist. After reading this a few times through, he would have been better served to have less panels to really kind of show off his art. But I feel like he was trying to keep up with the writer and maybe gloss over some of the writer's inadequacies, which often happens in comic books, because a lot of people will either go for a comic for the writing or the art. Mostly, it's usually the art drives the comic. But when it's a mishmash of the writing and the art, that is when you get great comics. Great establishing shot with nice shadows, nice foreground. I wish there was a middle and a background for the trees, but that's totally nitpicking. Nice speed lines. He's got nice uses of blacks, and he's got some really nice detail in the structures and the his technique and in everything. The backgrounds, he uses a lot of different line, not so much line variation, but line work. He's got some really nice textures for the bricks and for the wood. And it looks like he doesn't spend too much time on it, because a lot of people will like do a whole bunch of intricate design work in the textures, when really all they have to do is a few parts of the panel to show what they want to do, show what they mean to do. So anyway, I really like the art. I really dig the art. I wish it had been less panels per page. It's kind of like they're trying to put a lot of story into a comic that doesn't have a lot of story in it. Um, it's very basic story, and the dialogue is a little weak. But overall, even though I dislike the storyline and kind of the writer's technique, here's another thing that I didn't really like is the word balloons. The word balloons cut you out completely from any kind of not so much believability, but being drawn into the comic. I don't know why that is. I don't know why typing text draws you out. You would think that it would be because it's more readable that you would draw you in more, but I think an organic look, uh, maybe instead of a book, you're not reading a book, you're reading a person's dialogue. This is what he's saying. So maybe this text, this typing text, um, draws you out because it's not organic, and you don't think, oh, it's from him. You think anybody could be saying any of these lines, um, because it all kind of just blends together, blurs together. And really, that's not what you want on a comic book page. You don't want everything to blend together. You want specific highlights of things that you really want to do. Um, so anyway, here's Grips number 3. I never really wanted to get another issue. I think I read it and I was kind of put off by the writing, and I didn't really see how good the art is. I think it would really look really good colored. Um, but uh, I kind of was turned off by it, didn't really get any more issues, and my comic store, I don't think got any more anyway. Um, I would probably give this a 5 out of 10. The art really is the only reason to get this. The story is not compelling, it's not interesting, and I really kind of didn't enjoy reading it as the comic, but I enjoyed um, looking at it. I enjoyed looking at the art. So, thanks for watching, and hit subscribe and the like button if you enjoyed this content. And let me know about what you think of the book in the comments. And I'll see you next time.